Hi, welcome back everyone. In today's video, we are going to start a new series of AWS videos. We are calling it Begin with Basics. In this specific series, we will take individual AWS services and we will first learn about the basics of that specific service. Then in the next video of the series, we will build upon that basic knowledge and learn the advanced configuration of certain options for that service so that we can learn with a strong foundation in place and we can build upon a kind of a use case for that specific service. So let's begin, guys. In the this very first video, we have picked up AWS S3 or simple storage service. In this first video, we are going to first learn what is S3 and what all its features on a very high level, and then we'll see how you can create and configure a bucket, then how you can upload objects in that specific bucket, and objects are like files and with the metadata. Then we'll see how we can view or open those objects. We'll also see how to organize those objects in some folder kind of a structure. Then we'll see delete objects and also how to delete the buckets. So let's first start learning about what S3 is and what all its features. So S3 is an object based storage where you can store your files like image, text file, word files, documents, etc. S3 has a tiered storage structure where you can use a type of storage based on your access patterns. It can be your standard storage, it can be your infrequently accessed storage, it can be your deep archive, which we call Glacier. And we'll see on the management console what all these options are. Then your S3 is built for 99.99% of availability. When you upload a bucket or a object in a bucket, it gets copied at three different locations at least. So at any given point of time, your data has three different copies at three different places. So that's the reason it is able to provide that kind of an high availability and 11 nines of durability. Then you in S3 you'll have something called lifecycle management where you can manage your or move your data between different storage tier, and you can optimize on the cost based on your utilization patterns. So we'll see how we can do that. Then we have a feature called versioning where you can keep your previous versions of objects in your S3 buckets. uh, it is basically useful where you can avoid unintended deletes by the applications. So this is where it will come handy. Then to access control, you can use either IAM policies, bucket policies, or access point policies. Although you can still use ACLs, but that is a kind of a legacy method, is no longer recommended. And then very important thing to remember that you cannot install an operating system or applications on top of S3. This is something which is very important factor which we need to consider while picking up which kind of a storage we're going to use on AWS. So now let's jump into the console and see how we can configure S3 quickly. So guys, we are on AWS Management Console. I have this S3 in recently visited services as well, or you can go to services. You can find it under storage also. If you go there, you'll find S3 here, or you can search it from here. So let's quickly click on S3. And first we need to create a bucket. Bucket is nothing but a container which is going to contain our data or objects. So this is my S3 user interface. To create a bucket, to upload some data, first you need to create a bucket. So click on create bucket. First give it a name. Then this bucket name should be unique in the global namespace, and there are certain rules which you can find it from here. And if you use names such as demo, test, those names are going to be rejected for sure because they might have already been used by someone else. So it's good to have a specific name along with some random character, so that way it can be easier for create a bucket. This is something which you can define. Here you can pick your region in which you're gonna create your bucket. While picking up the region, the first consideration would be that data should be as near as possible to your user. So based on that, you can pick your region over there. If you want to copy certain, if you already have an existing bucket and you want that all these settings should be copied from the previously created bucket, you can pick that bucket from there. Now here we will define whether ACLs should be used or not. By default, ACLs are disabled, and that's the recommended approach. Now this is the legacy way of controlling access on S3. Now it's good to use IAM policies, bucket policies, or access control access point policies. So by default, ACLs are disabled. So basically, what does it mean? That all the objects in the buckets are owned by the account owner. So whoever is uploading the object in this bucket, those objects would be owned by the account itself, right? Then we have something called block public access setting for this bucket, where you can, if you see, by default all public access is blocked, and if you click one, it has got 4 different options which gets checked with the help of it. If you want to pick and choose between these 4, you can just edit it from here and pick your own options. So if you look at it, these 2 options, basically the first option says block public access to buckets and objects, which you can grant through new access control list, and this one would be which you grant through any access control list that is either new or existing ACLs. These 2 set of policies downside, it will basically block public access to bucket and object which you grant through new public bucket or access point policies, and this one basically either through new or an existing bucket or account access account policy. So basically you can pick and choose between these options, and if you want to apply all, you can just block it from here. So we'll just select from here. Then we have something called bucket versioning. Is basically if you can, and if you want, you can have multiple variants of an object in the same bucket, and this is basically used to help you retrieve and restore versions of every object stored in S3 bucket. This is all useful for where some user can unintentionally delete or do some override, or it's also possible when your application fails to write properly. So for this demonstration, we are keeping it disabled, and in the next video we will try to see how we can configure this one. Here you can add tags to this bucket if you want to. I'm currently skipping this one, but tags are very important when it comes to governance and cost control of your resources. By default, your AWS S3 will have 3 different way of encryption from server side, and one you can have from the client side. So we can pick any one of these. By default, it is server side encryption with S3 managed keys. So this is what we're gonna continue. You can also have a bucket key where you can reduce the number of KMS calls to the service, and we have enabled it by default. If you go and click on advanced settings, you'll find something called object lock. Basically this is an option where you can use worm kind of a model where you write once and read many or multiple times. This is basically is useful when you want to prevent deletion or overwritten of an object for either for a fixed amount of time or for indefinite period of time. So we are not currently enabling it. We also have a video which basically explain in detail about this. Please go and have a look at that as well if you want to learn more about object lock. So after once you are through with your options, click on create bucket, and basically this will help you to create your bucket too. Hopefully that should work. So let's click on create bucket, and now my bucket has been created. Now let's see what all the options we have. If you click on the bucket name, you'll find properties, permissions, metrics, management, and access points. If you click on properties, here you can change those versioning tags and encryption methodology. You can have server access logs, CloudTrail data events, notifications. All these options you can configure if you want to, and we're gonna build up slowly based on this basic configuration which we're gonna do today. If you click on permissions, you'll find permissions overview, and you can have where you added block public access, the bucket settings you can change from here, and you can change the bucket policies. There's one more thing which I want to show you. If you want to enable ACL for some or the other reason, this is a place where you can do that. You can click on edit. Here you can pick your ACLs enable, which we're not going to do. We're going to continue with the recommended option of ACLs disabled. Click on cancel. This is where you can write your bucket policies, and this is the access control policies, which basically enforces that the owner should be the account in which the bucket is present. That's the basically default kind of an option which we have. Then this is where you can put your JSON for the core the cross origin resource sharing configuration. If you have a web application which is being loaded into one domain, and the resources which this application is accessing into a different domain, then you need to have a kind of a course configuration which you can put here. So these are the options which we have, and there are the metrics. So basically it tells about the total bucket size, how many number of objects we have in the bucket, then which kind of a storage class. You can create your storage class analysis from here, and you can have your application metrics if you configure replication on this bucket. Then here you can do certain management actions like lifecycle rule management, replication rules, and the inventory configuration. This is basically advanced configuration of your S3 bucket. And here, if you have a shared data set, you can create access point for S3 as well. So these are the some basic configuration of your S3. Let's see how we can upload an object or a file. So click on this is my bucket name. Click on objects, and here is an option called upload, and here also it is in a kind of a orange color. Click on upload, and you can add files or folders. Let's say you want to add files, so click on add files. I want to add this logo to my specific folder, so this is my logo, and this is the destination. Now if you look at it's a bucket name, and if you look at click on here, this is my destination details. So basically whether the bucket versioning is enabled or not, what kind of a encryption type we have, whether object law is disabled or not. These are the options which you can see from here. Now if you go in permissions, you'll see this bucket has the bucket owner and info, so those same permissions would be applicable. And from here, if you click on properties, you can pick which storage class or the tier which we spoke about in our features uh, page. So this is where you can either have, by default it will be uploaded into standard tier, so which is basically for frequently accessed data, where your data will be stored in three or more than three availability zones at any given point of time. Then we have intelligent tiering, which basically tell you if you do not know the access pattern, this tier will define based on the access pattern to which tier your data should move. Then we have standard infrequently access, which is basically for infrequently accessed data. Then we have one zone IA, this is where your data will be stored on a single zone only. Then we have a glacier for the deep archive kind of a thing. So this is basically we can talk about in a different video as well. So these are the options which we have. So if you do not want to change it, by default it will go to the standard class. Here you can define the server side encryption of your object by default, and then we have this checksum. By default MD5 is used as a checksum. If you want to add or change this thing, you can add it from here. Again, you can add a tag to your data and the metadata as well. So if you are okay with the configuration part of your upload, click on upload, and it will start uploading the file. So now if you see the file upload has been successful, I can close this one from here. So this is basically my file is. Now how do you organize it? Currently I have only one object. What happens if you have a multiple objects in a bucket has a kind of a flat hierarchy or flat structure, but and it does not have those directory kind of a thing, but we have called prefixes, which can give you that directory kind of a structure. And to do that, if you want to organize your objects into that directory kind of a structure, although it will not have that kind of a POSIX information, but yeah, still you can use them to. And this prefix structure will also help you to increase or optimize the performance of your S3 bucket. So that's something which we're going to talk about in a later video as well. So to create a prefix, you can create folder and give it a name, and by default the console will put up a forward slash in front of the name which you give. Let's say I want to give it image 1, right? So here you can define the server side encryption. I want to keep with the default one, create folder here. So if I create a folder, so this is a folder which got created with a forward slash in front of the name of. So it tells you that this is a folder or prefix for the S3 bucket, and this is the file. If you look at, there is a change in icon as well. Now if I want to move this file to this image, you can just go here, click on actions, you can move or copy. I want to move it, so let's say move this object. I want to move it to a bucket, the same bucket. Here I can browse S3, so it will tell you where I can move it. So I have only one option, click on this one and choose your destination, and again choose your destination details. And if you're okay with that, if you want to, you can change the checksum also. and if you're okay with the configuration part, click on move. So this will move my existing object which was at the root of the bucket earlier, and now it is moved to the prefix or the folder which we created. Once it is done, you can close it and you can just go back. Now we have this bucket under which we have this image folder, and under which I have my file here. Now similarly, how you're gonna delete the and how you're gonna view your object. So if you click on here, we have option copy S3 URI, download or open. If you can click on open here, so it will be start showing you here, right? So but there is another option normally where we give the URL. So if you click on here, this is the URL, but if you click on, let's copy paste this URL here and let's see how does it work. So this is another way of doing it, but because we did not make the bucket public, so that's the reason I cannot use this URL to view this object. So this is what which you need to remember. Another one thing which you need to notice here in the object URL, if you look at it here, there is an in the URL folder path has been added the way it has been kept over there, right? So this is already, which can tell you that whether this specific folder is in which, I mean specific file is in which folder. So this is where you can get it from here. This is my bucket name, this is my region, and this is basically the folder and the file name. Bucket, this is my bucket, and if I want to delete it, so demo2, I want to delete it. So if you click on delete, it will say the bucket is not empty. So it's basically till you cannot delete a bucket if it is not empty. So to delete all the objects in the bucket, use empty bucket configuration. So you click on that one. So basically here you can confirm deletion, type permanently delete. So if you write permanently delete, you can click on empty. So bucket will be empty now, right? So click on exit from here. Now I go back here and click on delete. So it should be able to delete my bucket. So if I just copy and paste this name here, because that's something which is required. So in the text input field, delete the bucket. So it will be able to delete the buckets. So see, now I have only left with a single bucket. So that's all about the basics of S3, how you create a bucket, how you organize objects in a bucket, and how do you delete the object and delete the bucket. So that's it for this demo, guys. Hope you like the video. I'll continue with the further in this series, and we'll learn more about S3 and its advanced configuration. So thanks for watching. Thank you.